The bargain. Naomi Foster pressed her forehead against the hospital window, watching raindrops race down the glass. The steady beep of her mother's monitors provided a grim soundtrack to her thoughts. 3 months of aggressive cancer treatments had drained not just her mother's strength, but every cent of their savings. "Ms. Foster?" The nurse's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Visiting hours are ending soon." Naomi nodded, squeezing her mother's frail hand before gathering her photography equipment. The hospital hallway felt impossibly long as she walked out, her shoulders weighted by the mounting bills tucked into her bag. Photography gigs that once brought her joy now barely covered the interest on her loans. Outside, Seattle's persistent rain soaked through her thin jacket as she waited for the bus. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Another declined payment. At this rate, the treatment center would stop her mother's care within days. Naomi Foster? She looked up to find a sleek black car parked beside her. Window rolled down to reveal a woman in an immaculate suit. "I'm Veronica Tate, Mr. Westbrook's personal assistant." The woman extended a business card. "He'd like to discuss a business proposal with you." Naomi frowned. "Julian Westbrook? The tech guy?" "The very same. He saw your photography at the charity auction last month and has a proposition. The car will take you to him now if you're available." Every instinct told Naomi to decline, but desperation makes for poor judgment. 20 minutes later, she found herself in the gleaming headquarters of Westbrook Technologies, being escorted to the top floor. Julian Westbrook wasn't what she expected. Younger than his magazine covers suggested, with dark eyes that evaluated her with unsettling directness. His office overlooked the Seattle skyline, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked glass. "Your Faces of Resilience series," he said without preamble. "It was extraordinary." "Thank you," Naomi replied cautiously. "But I doubt you brought me here to discuss my photography." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Direct, I appreciate that." He gestured to a chair. "I have a proposal that could solve your financial troubles." Naomi stiffened. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know things, Miss Foster. Your mother's medical bills, the second mortgage on your house, the loans." He slid a folder across the desk. "I can make it all disappear." She didn't touch the folder. "Why would you do that?" "Because I need something only you can provide." Julian leaned forward. "One evening of your company. A charity gala. I need someone genuine, someone real, not the usual social climbers who surround me." "You want me to pretend to be your date?" Naomi's voice caught. "One night, one event." His expression remained unreadable. "In exchange, I'll cover your mother's medical expenses, past and future." The weight of his offer pressed against her chest. "Why me?" "Your photographs reveal someone who sees people as they truly are." Julian stood, walking to the window. "The gala honors cancer research. I need someone who understands its importance, not someone who sees it as a networking opportunity." Naomi's mind raced. This could save her mother, save their home, give them a chance. But the implication? "This arrangement," she said carefully, "would be strictly professional." Something flickered across Julian's face. Disappointment? Relief? Of course. "I'm asking for your company, not your virtue, Miss Foster." Yet his eyes told a different story, one of loneliness so profound it matched her own. This man, surrounded by wealth beyond imagination, seemed as isolated as she felt. "I'll need the agreement in writing," she finally said. Julian nodded, unsurprised. "Veronica will handle the details." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Naomi hesitated, then took his hand. His grip was warm, strong, at odds with his cool demeanor. "Deal," she whispered, unable to shake the feeling that she had just made a bargain with consequences far beyond what either of them anticipated. As she left the tower, contract signed and a significant deposit already transferred to her account, Naomi told herself this was just business. One night of her time in exchange for her mother's life. But the way Julian had looked at her, like someone, seeing color for the first time, suggested this arrangement might unravel in ways neither of them could predict. The arrangement, the Westbrook Foundation annual gala, transformed the Seattle Art Museum into a shimmering wonderland. Crystal chandeliers cast diamond-like reflections across marble floors while Seattle's elite mingled in designer finery. Naomi felt like an imposter in her borrowed dress, a midnight blue gown Veronica had delivered that morning with a note. "Mr. Westbrook thought this would compliment your eyes." She tugged at the silky fabric, feeling exposed despite its modest cut. The dress fit perfectly, unsettlingly so, making her wonder what else Julian Westbrook knew about her. "Stop fidgeting," Julian murmured, appearing beside her with 2 champagne flutes. His tuxedo accentuated his lean frame, and for a moment Naomi understood why tabloids obsessed over him. "You look beautiful." "I look like someone playing dress-up," she whispered back, accepting the champagne. "Everyone here knows I don't belong." "That's precisely why you do." His eyes softened. "Everyone else is pretending too. You're just honest about it." A silver-haired woman approached, eyeing Naomi with barely concealed curiosity. "Julian, darling, who's your lovely companion?" "Penelope Hargrove, meet Naomi Foster, the photographer I commissioned for the Foundation's new campaign." The lie rolled smoothly off his tongue. "Naomi, Penelope chairs our board." Naomi extended her hand, surprised by her own steady voice. "A pleasure, Mrs. Hargrove." "Photographer?" Penelope's eyebrows rose. "How?" "Unexpected. Ms. Foster's work capturing cancer patients and their families will be featured in our awareness initiative," Julian added, his hand settling lightly on Naomi's lower back. "Her perspective is exactly what we need." Penelope's expression shifted from dismissive to intrigued. "I'd love to see your portfolio, dear." After Penelope departed, Naomi turned to Julian. "A commission?" "That wasn't part of our deal." "It is now," he replied. "If you're willing. Your work deserves to be seen." Before she could respond, Julian was pulled away by investors. Naomi wandered through the gallery, stopping before a painting of a solitary figure against a stormy landscape. Its loneliness resonated with her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. An elderly man with kind eyes stood beside her. "Thomas Westbrook, Julian's grandfather. Naomi Foster." She smiled. "Are you enjoying the evening?" "I'm too old for these affairs, but I come for Julian." Thomas studied her. "You're not like his usual companions." "I'm not his companion," Naomi clarified. "Just a business arrangement," Thomas chuckled. "My grandson doesn't look at business arrangements the way he looks at you." Naomi felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Mr. Westbrook, He lost his parents young," Thomas continued. "Never quite learned how to connect with people. Builds walls instead of bridges." He patted her arm. "But I haven't seen him smile like that in years." Across the room, Julian caught her eye, offering a small, private smile that made her heart stutter. The evening progressed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Julian remained attentive, his hand finding the small of her back whenever they navigated through crowds, his voice dropping to a whisper when sharing observations about guests. Each touch, each shared glance blurred the lines of their arrangement. During the keynote speech about cancer research breakthroughs, Naomi found herself fighting tears, thinking of her mother. Julian silently offered his handkerchief, his fingers lingering against hers. "Thank you," she whispered, "not just for this, but for everything." "Don't thank me," he replied, voice tight. "This isn't charity, Naomi. I'm getting what I wanted." "And what's that?" His answer was interrupted by the announcement of the dance portion of the evening. Julian stood, extending his hand. "Shall we?" On the dance floor, his arm encircled her waist, drawing her closer than propriety demanded. Naomi allowed herself to relax into his embrace, inhaling his subtle cologne. "Why did you really bring me here?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the music. Julian's expression grew distant. "My mother died of cancer when I was 12. These events, they remind me of hospitals, of loss." His hand tightened on hers. "I needed someone who understood that reality, not someone who would use it as conversation fodder." The vulnerability in his admission caught her off guard. This wasn't the calculated businessman who had presented her with a contract days ago. "I'm sorry about your mother," she said softly. "And I'm sorry about yours." Julian's gaze met hers. "But thanks to advancements like those funded tonight, your story might have a different ending." As the evening wound down, they found themselves on a balcony overlooking the city. The rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp and clear. Julian removed his jacket, draping it over Naomi's shoulders. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "Any of it. Maybe I wanted to." He turned to face her, suddenly earnest. "Naomi, I'd like to—" "Don't." She stepped back. "Whatever you're about to say, please don't. This was a business arrangement, remember? You've fulfilled your part. I've fulfilled mine. And if I want more than that?" The question hung between them, dangerous and tempting. In another life, perhaps she could have explored the electricity between them. But not like this, not with the power imbalance, not with her mother's life as collateral. "I should go," she whispered. Julian nodded, his mask of detachment slipping back into place. "My driver will take you home." In the back seat of his luxury car, Naomi clutched her evening bag, inside which rested a check that would change her life. Yet as the city lights blurred past, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving something irreplaceable behind. The aftermath. 3 weeks passed since the gala, and Naomi tried to convince herself she was moving forward. Her mother had been transferred to a prestigious oncology center, where innovative treatments were already showing promising results. The mortgage payments were current. For the first time in months, Naomi could breathe without the crushing weight of debt pressing against her chest, yet something else had taken its place, a peculiar emptiness she couldn't explain. "You're distracted again," her friend Daniela observed, setting down her coffee cup. They sat in their favorite cafe, sunlight streaming through rain-speckled windows. "Is it your mom?" "Mom's doing great, actually." Naomi smiled, genuine happiness breaking through. "The doctors are optimistic." "Then what is it?" "You've been somewhere else since that gala night." Naomi traced the rim of her mug. "It's nothing. Just adjusting to not being in constant crisis mode." Daniela looked unconvinced but let it drop. "Speaking of your photography, did you see the Foundation's new campaign launched yesterday?" "They're featuring cancer survivors." "What foundation?" "Westbrook. Your mysterious benefactor's charity." Daniela pushed her phone across the table. "It's everywhere." Naomi stared at the screen, her heart stuttering. The Westbrook Foundation's, new awareness campaign featured striking black and white portraits of cancer patients and their families, images she recognized immediately as her own work from her Faces of Resilience series. "I didn't authorize this," she whispered. "Check the credits." Daniela tapped the screen. There it was. Photography by Naomi Foster. And below that, commissioned by the Westbrook Foundation. Her phone buzzed with an incoming email. The Foundation's logo appeared alongside a substantial payment notification, 3 times what her work typically commanded, with a contract attached stating she retained all creative rights. "I have to go," Naomi said abruptly, gathering her things. Outside, she called the number from Julian's business card, half expecting to reach his assistant. Instead, his voice answered directly. "Naomi." He sounded unsurprised. "I wondered when you'd call." "You used my photographs without permission," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Check your email from 2 weeks ago. Veronica sent the proposal and contract. When we received no response, we proceeded according to the non-response clause." Naomi froze, remembering the unread email she'd been avoiding from anything Westbrook related. "I didn't see it," a pause. "An oversight on your part, then. But the payment has been processed regardless. This isn't about money." "No," he agreed softly. "It rarely is with you." The intimacy in his tone caught her off guard. She pictured him in his sleek office looking out over the city, perhaps thinking of her as she'd caught herself thinking of him. "Your work deserved to be seen," Julian continued. "The campaign has already raised substantial funds for research." Her anger deflated. "You could have called me directly. Would you have answered?" The question hung between them, honest and cutting. They both knew she'd been avoiding any connection to that night. "How's your mother?" he asked, changing the subject. "Better? The new treatment center is incredible. Dr. Harrison is the best in his field. I made sure he took personal interest in her case." Naomi's breath caught. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." His voice softened. "Naomi, have dinner with me tonight." "Julian, not as a transaction. Not as an arrangement. Just dinner." She closed her eyes, conflicted. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because we started with an imbalance I'm not sure we can overcome." She swallowed hard. "You bought my company once. How can anything that follows ever be genuine?" The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. 7 o'clock, he finally said. "The address will be in your email. Come or don't, it's entirely your choice. But know that whatever you decide, your mother's care remains secured." The line went dead before she could respond. That evening, Naomi stood before her closet, telling herself she wasn't going. Even as she rifled through her modest collection of dresses, Her phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. Wear something comfortable. No galas tonight. Against her better judgment, she found herself in a taxi at 6:45, wearing a simple sundress and denim jacket. The address led not to an upscale restaurant as she'd expected, but to a quiet neighborhood park overlooking Lake Washington. Julian waited on a bench, dressed in jeans and a casual button-down, so different from his usual boardroom attire that she almost didn't recognize him. Beside him sat a picnic basket. "You came," he said, standing as she approached. "I'm as surprised as you are." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually guarded face. "I hoped you would." The picnic he'd prepared was simple but thoughtful. Artisanal cheeses, fresh bread, summer berries. No expensive champagne, just local cider and paper cups. "Did you arrange this yourself?" she asked, noting the lack of staff or fanfare. "Is it so hard to believe I can manage a picnic?" "Honestly?" "Yes," Julian laughed, the sound warming something inside her. "Fair enough. But yes, this was all me. Though I did have to watch 3 YouTube tutorials on how to fold these napkins." As the sun set over the lake, casting golden light across the water, they talked, really talked, about her photography, her dreams of traveling to document untold stories, about his company's origins in his college dorm room, the pressure of legacy, his complicated relationship with wealth. "Most people want something from me," he admitted, watching the darkening sky. "My money, my influence, my connections. I wanted something too," Naomi reminded him gently. "The difference is you were honest about it." Julian turned to face her. "And you've been avoiding me ever since you got it." She looked down at her hands. "Because I'm afraid." "Of me?" "Of this." She gestured between them. "Whatever is happening here feels compromised from the start, built on an uneven foundation." Julian considered her words. "What if we reset? Start again as if that night never happened? Can we? With my mother's treatment funded by you? With my work in your foundation's campaign?" She shook her head. "The past doesn't just disappear, Julian." "No," he agreed. "But we can choose how it shapes our future." As moonlight replaced the sunset, casting silver light across the lake, Naomi found herself laughing at Julian's surprisingly self-deprecating stories of tech world disasters. This version of him, relaxed, authentic, was dangerously easy to like. When her phone chimed with a message from the hospital, Julian immediately noticed her expression change. "What is it?" he asked, concern evident. "Mom's having a difficult night." Naomi stood gathering her things. "I should go." "I'll drive you," he offered, already packing up the picnic. "You don't have to." "I want to," he said simply. In the car, quiet settled between them. As they approached the hospital, Julian broke the silence. "Whatever happens next is your choice, Naomi. But I'd like to see you again." She studied his profile in the dashboard lights. "Why me? You could have anyone." "That's exactly why." He pulled into the hospital entrance. "Everyone else is trying to be what they think I want. You're the only one who's ever just been yourself." As she stepped out of the car, Naomi realized the balance between them had shifted. That night at the gala, she'd felt purchased, contracted. Tonight she felt seen, truly seen, perhaps for the first time. "Good night, Julian," she said softly. "Good night, Naomi." She watched him drive away, understanding that whatever decision she made next would be entirely her own. The arrangement was over. Whatever followed would be something new, something yet to be defined. The revelation: Naomi adjusted the lighting in her small studio, preparing for the day's client. In the month since the picnic, her photography business had transformed. The Westbrook Foundation campaign had brought unexpected attention to her work, filling her calendar with bookings from clients who might never have found her otherwise. She had seen Julian twice more, once for coffee that stretched into a 3-hour conversation, and again for a walk along the waterfront, where their hands had brushed against each other without either acknowledging the electricity between them. Each meeting ended the same way, with Julian respecting her boundaries and Naomi fighting the urge to dissolve them. Her phone rang with her mother's ringtone. "Hey, Mom, how was therapy today?" "Dr. Harrison says I'm making remarkable progress," Eleanor Foster replied, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "He's talking about reducing treatments if my next scan looks good." Warmth bloomed in Naomi's chest. "That's incredible news." "It's all thanks to that mysterious benefactor of yours," Eleanor said. When are you going to tell me more about this Westbrook Foundation that's covering everything? Naomi hesitated. She had shared only the barest details with her mother, afraid of how the full story might sound. It's complicated, Mom. Eleanor's tone turned knowing. Does complicated have anything to do with why you keep checking your phone during our visits? Or why you're smiling more these days? I have to finish setting up for a client, Naomi deflected. Love you, Mom. After hanging up, Naomi checked her messages. Nothing from Julian since yesterday. A simple text wishing her luck with today's photo shoot. She was surprised by her disappointment. The studio door opened and her client entered, a young cancer survivor wanting portraits to commemorate her remission. As Naomi worked, guiding the woman through poses that highlighted her strength rather than her scars, she felt centered in a way that had been missing for too long. You have a gift, the woman said afterward, reviewing the preview images. You see people as whole, not broken. The compliment stayed with Naomi as she closed the studio that evening. Outside, rain fell in typical Seattle fashion, pattering against the awning as she locked up. She was searching for her umbrella when a familiar black car pulled to the curb. Julian stepped out holding an umbrella of his own. Need a ride? Were you waiting for me? She asked, surprised. No. He smiled slightly. That would be stalking. I was meeting with a startup across the street and saw you through the window. Convenient timing. Fortunate timing, he corrected, extending the umbrella to cover her. I've been thinking about you. The admission hung between them, simple and unadorned. No pretense, no games. I've been thinking about you too, she admitted, stepping under the shared shelter. They drove in comfortable silence until Julian cleared his throat. I have a proposition, Naomi tensed. Another arrangement? No. He looked troubled by her assumption. Nothing like that. I'm flying to New York tomorrow for a technology conference. There's an exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum I thought you might enjoy. Photography from conflict zones, documenting resilience amid devastation. You want me to go to New York? With you? The exhibition aligns with your interests. And yes, I'd like your company. His knuckles whitened slightly on the steering wheel. As my guest, not my employee. Separate hotel rooms. Your expenses covered, no strings attached. Naomi studied his profile. Why? Julian pulled the car to the side of the road, turning to face her fully. Because when I'm with you, I'm not Julian Westbrook, tech billionaire. I'm just me. And I haven't felt like just me in a very long time. The vulnerability in his admission touched something deep inside her. I can't just drop everything and fly to New York. Why not? Your calendar shows no bookings tomorrow or the next day. She stared at him. How would you know my schedule? Julian's expression shifted from open to guarded. I asked Veronica to check before I invited you. You had your assistant investigate my availability? Naomi's voice rose. That's crossing a line, Julian. I wanted to be prepared. No, you wanted to control the variables, just like you've been doing from the beginning. The realization hit her with stunning clarity. The gallery where you first saw my work, the charity focused on cancer research, even Dr. Harrison taking my mother's case. None of it was coincidence, was it? Julian's silence confirmed her suspicion. How long have you been orchestrating this? She demanded. How long have you been managing me? It wasn't like that, he finally said. I saw your exhibition 6 months ago. Your photographs of cancer patients, they reminded me of my mother. I wanted to meet the person who could capture such dignity and suffering. So you researched me, found my vulnerabilities, my mother's illness, our financial struggles. I looked into your background, yes. Julian's jaw tightened. Standard procedure for anyone I might work with. And then you waited until I was desperate enough to accept your arrangement. The pieces aligned with sickening precision. Was any of it real? Or was I just another acquisition? Pain flashed across his face. Everything between us has been real, Naomi. Yes, I created the opportunity to meet you, but I never anticipated. He stopped, gathering himself. I never expected to feel this way about you. What way? She challenged. Like I've spent my life in grayscale and suddenly there's color. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The arrangement was a mistake. I see that now. But what's happened since the picnic, our conversations, that's been genuine. Naomi felt tears threatening. How can I possibly trust that? You've been manipulating circumstances from the start. Not manipulating. Creating opportunities. Julian's expression turned pleading. Is it so wrong to want to help someone you admire? To use resources I have in abundance to ease suffering I understand intimately. It is when you're not transparent about it. Naomi opened the car door, needing space. You don't get to play God with people's lives, Julian, no matter how benevolent your intentions. Rain soaked through her jacket as she stepped onto the sidewalk, but she barely noticed. Julian followed, abandoning the umbrella. Naomi, please. Let me explain. I need time to think, she cut him off. I need to understand what parts of this were real and what parts were calculated. All of it was real, he insisted, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. My feelings for you are real. And what are those feelings exactly? She demanded. Thunder rumbled overhead as they stood facing each other, both drenched and at an impasse. I love you, Julian said simply. I think I've loved you since I saw how you captured the dignity in suffering, the beauty in resilience. Everything since has only deepened that certainty. The declaration should have felt like a victory. Instead, it landed like a blow. You don't even know me. I know enough. He stepped closer. I know you put everyone else first. I know you see beauty where others see brokenness. I know you're afraid of depending on anyone because you've carried everything alone for so long. And I know you're used to getting whatever you want, she countered. Used to controlling outcomes. How can I believe your feelings aren't just another variable you're trying to manage? A taxi approached, its light glowing through the rain. Naomi raised her hand to hail it. Where are you going? Julian asked, desperation edging his voice. To the hospital, to see my mother. She opened the taxi door. Don't follow me, Julian, please. Naomi, I need space to think. To decide if what's between us can ever be balanced. She met his eyes one last time. Because love without trust isn't love at all. As the taxi pulled away, Naomi watched Julian standing in the rain, looking more vulnerable than a billionaire had any right to be. For the first time, she saw him clearly, not as her benefactor or her suitor, but as a man who had spent a lifetime building walls only to find himself trapped behind them. The revelation brought no clarity, only questions. Had their connection been genuine, or merely an illusion created by carefully controlled circumstances? Could something that began so unequally ever transform into something balanced and true? At the hospital, she found her mother sleeping peacefully, monitors showing strong vital signs. Naomi sank into the visitor's chair, water dripping from her clothes onto the linoleum floor. You look like you could use this, a nurse said, offering a blanket. Whoever he is, he must have really messed up. Naomi accepted the blanket with a weak smile. How did you know it was a he? Honey, I've been a nurse for 30 years. I know heartbreak when I see it. As the storm raged outside, Naomi wondered if the nurse was right. Was this heartbreak? Or was it the painful birth of something more honest? Something that could only exist once illusions were shattered and truth, however uncomfortable, stood revealed in their place. The resolution morning light filtered through the hospital blinds, waking Naomi from her uncomfortable slumber in the visitor's chair. Her mother watched her with knowing eyes. You stayed all night, Eleanor observed. And in wet clothes, no less. Naomi stretched, wincing at her stiff muscles. I wanted to be here. Eleanor adjusted herself against the pillows. Does this have anything to do with why my doctor received a call at midnight asking about my condition? Naomi froze. What? Dr. Harrison personally checked on me at 1 a.m., said Mr. Westbrook was concerned. Eleanor fixed her daughter with a penetrating gaze. The same Mr. Westbrook whose foundation is funding my treatment? The one you've been so vague about? Mom, it's complicated, so simplify it. Eleanor reached for her daughter's hand. I've spent months fighting for my life, Naomi. I don't have patience for evasions anymore. Naomi sighed, then told her everything, the initial arrangement, the gala, the unexpected connection that followed, and finally, last night's revelation about Julian's orchestration. Eleanor listened without interruption, her expression thoughtful. When Naomi finished, she was surprised by her mother's gentle laughter. What's funny? Naomi asked, bewildered. You're so much like your father. Eleanor shook her head fondly, so determined to stand on your own that you can't recognize a hand reaching out in genuine support. It wasn't support, Mom. It was manipulation. Was it? Eleanor challenged. Or was it someone with means seeing a way to help and taking it? Not everyone expresses care the same way, Naomi. He should have been honest from the start. Yes, Eleanor agreed. But people rarely take the most direct path to what matters. We circle, we stumble, we make mistakes. She squeezed Naomi's hand. The question isn't whether he made mistakes. It's whether what you've found together is worth working through them. Before Naomi could respond, her phone chimed with a message. Not from Julian, but from Veronica. Mr. Westbrook asked me to inform you that he has canceled his New York trip. He also wants you to know that all arrangements regarding your mother's care have been transferred to a blind trust. You will never need to interact with him again regarding these matters. A second message followed. He asked me to convey that he respects your need for space and will not contact you unless you reach out first. Something tightened in Naomi's chest, the sensation of something precious slipping away. He's letting me go, she whispered. Eleanor studied her daughter's face. Is that what you want? The question lingered as Naomi left the hospital later that morning. Walking through the garden courtyard where patients took their daily exercise, she noticed a familiar figure seated on a bench, Thomas Westbrook, Julian's grandfather. Ms. Foster, he called, waving her over. A pleasant surprise. Mr. Westbrook, she approached cautiously. Are you visiting someone? Just enjoying the gardens. He patted the bench beside him. My grandson designed this courtyard, you know. Insisted that healing requires beauty as much as medicine. Naomi sat, suspicion prickling. Did Julian send you? Thomas chuckled. Julian doesn't send me anywhere. At my age, I go where I please. His expression turned serious, but I did see him this morning. He looked rather like you do now, like someone caught in a storm without shelter. He created the storm, Naomi said, though her voice lacked conviction. Perhaps, Thomas nodded thoughtfully. Julian has always believed he can solve any problem with enough resources and planning. People aren't problems to be solved, though, are they? No, they're not. When his parents died, Julian was 12. I found him trying to calculate how much money it would take to find a cure that could have saved his mother. Thomas's eyes grew distant with memory. He believed if he'd been smarter, worked harder, found more resources, he could have prevented her death. Naomi's heart constricted. That's not how illness works. No, but it shaped how he approaches the world. Everything becomes a problem to solve, an outcome to control. Thomas looked at her directly. Until you, me? You challenged his entire framework. You accepted his help but refused to be managed. You saw him, really saw him, not his wealth or power. Thomas smiled gently. Do you know how rare that is? Naomi stared at her hands. He should have been honest about how we met. Yes, Thomas agreed simply. He should have, but fear makes fools of the wisest among us. Julian Westbrook afraid? The concept seemed absurd. Terrified, Thomas confirmed. Of being seen as his bank account rather than himself. Of caring for someone who might not care back. He patted her hand. The question, my dear, is whether one mistake overshadows everything else you've come to know about him. As Thomas departed, leaving Naomi alone with her thoughts, she realized the older man had given her a gift. Context that didn't excuse Julian's actions but helped her understand them. For a week, Naomi immersed herself in work, photographing clients by day and editing late into the night. She visited her mother daily, encouraged by her continuing improvement. She ignored the exhibition announcement from the Metropolitan Museum that arrived in her mail, the one Julian had mentioned. On the 8th day, she found herself at Westbrook Technologies headquarters, unsure what had drawn her there beyond an undeniable need for resolution. Ms. Foster, Veronica greeted her with professional warmth. Mr. Westbrook is in a meeting. I don't have an appointment, Naomi acknowledged. I can wait. Veronica's expression softened. He's been expecting you. I'll let him know you're here. Minutes later, Naomi stood in Julian's office, the Seattle skyline spread beyond the windows just as it had been the first night. Julian looked different, tired perhaps, the careful polish slightly worn away. Naomi. Her name on his lips sounded like relief. I've been thinking, she began, her prepared speech suddenly inadequate. Before you continue, Julian interrupted, I need to show you something. He led her to a conference room where dozens of photographs were displayed on the walls, her photographs, but not just the cancer series. Images from her entire portfolio spanning years of work. What is this? She asked, bewildered. The first time I saw your work was 3 years ago, not 6 months ago as I claimed. Julian gestured to an image of an elderly couple embracing. This photo was featured in a small gallery downtown. I bought it anonymously because it reminded me of my grandparents. He moved to another photograph. A year later, I saw your name again at a charity exhibition, then at a community showcase. His voice grew quieter. I followed your career, Naomi. I admired your talent long before I knew about your mother's illness. Then why lie about it? Because the truth sounded like stalking, he admitted. Because I didn't know how to say I'd been drawn to your vision for years without seeming obsessive. He faced her directly. When I learned about your mother's situation, I saw a way to help and meet you simultaneously. It was wrong to approach it as a transaction. I see that now. Naomi studied the timeline of photographs, evidence of a connection deeper than she'd realized. Why show me this now? Because you deserve the complete truth, not just the parts I thought you could handle. Julian stepped closer. I've transferred all medical arrangements to a trust. Your mother's care is secure regardless of your feelings toward me. I've removed myself from the equation. And if I don't want you removed? Naomi asked quietly. Hope flickered across his face. What are you saying? I'm saying we both made mistakes. You weren't completely honest about how we met. I wasn't completely honest about how I felt. She took a deep breath. I've spent so long carrying everything alone that depending on someone else terrifies me. It was easier to focus on your mistakes than admit my own fear. Julian reached for her hand, hesitant. Where does that leave us? At the beginning, she said, threading her fingers through his. A real beginning this time. No arrangements, no power imbalances. Just two people seeing each other clearly with all our flaws and fears exposed. I can work with that, Julian murmured, drawing her closer. There's one condition, Naomi added. We take this slowly. Build something honest, something balanced. Anything, he promised. And one more thing, she smiled slightly. That exhibition at the Metropolitan. I'd still like to see it. Julian's answering smile transformed his face. I've already arranged for a private viewing. After hours. No crowds, just the art and us. Of course you have. Naomi laughed, the sound dissolving the last of the tension between them. Some habits die hard, don't they? I'm trying, he admitted, his forehead resting against hers. This is new territory for me. For both of us, she whispered. Outside the window, Seattle's perpetual clouds parted, allowing unexpected sunlight to flood the room. Naomi thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a desperate arrangement to something infinitely more valuable, the possibility of genuine connection. They had started with an imbalance of power, with secrets and calculations, but perhaps that wasn't so different from how all relationships begin, with imperfect people bringing their wounds and defenses to the table, gradually learning to lower their guards and reveal their true selves. Julian's arms encircled her waist, tentative yet certain, as if he'd finally found something he hadn't known he was searching for. Naomi leaned into his embrace, accepting the vulnerability of need alongside the strength of choice. What had begun as one night for survival had transformed into something neither of them could have anticipated. A second chance, a new beginning, an opportunity to build something authentic from imperfect foundations. As Naomi tilted her face to Julian's, accepting his kiss with the certainty of a conscious choice rather than a desperate bargain, she understood that sometimes the most unexpected arrangements lead to the most genuine connections, and sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't standing alone, but allowing someone else to stand beside you. In the warmth of that realization, surrounded by images that had unwittingly connected them long before they'd met, Naomi and Julian began again, not as billionaire and photographer, benefactor and recipient, but simply as two people choosing each other, freely and completely with clear eyes and open hearts.